every time a journalist writes about the metaverse, they pull the same stock photo of somebody wearing a VR headset.
Yeah.
The metaverse is not about VR. And every journalist pulls one of the same 10 stock Getty image photos of that, and that's further leading to misinformation. It is my thesis that the metaverse happens 18 inches from your face and not with your laptop strapped to your face. So there are why I think it's absolutely happening and why I'm staking my entire professional career on it, and then also why I think other smart people are doing so.
Buy land, develop it. I'm not going to do that. Maybe buy the currencies and hold them. That's more of my style, probably. What are the avenues that investors should look at right now?
I mean, the number of opportunities that we're seeing. People who are very visionary are so excited about the metaverse, and they have such amazing ideas when it comes to building content.
I'm about to be joined by the most active investor and developer in the metaverse industry. Her name is Janine Yorio, and she is the CEO of Everyrealm. Now, Everyrealm is the company that spent $4.3 million buying the equivalent of a city in the Sandbox metaverse. But she's invested in upwards of 25 different metaverses, most of which are not public or have not been revealed to the public yet, in addition to buying and creating over 3,000 NFTs and a variety of side projects. I think she's without question the most active investor and developer in the metaverse industry. The reason I wanted to talk to Janine today was because I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this industry and determine whether or not the investor in me wants a horse in that race. And if the answer is yes, what that horse should be. Because as I see it now, there's really three obvious buckets for the investors to play the metaverse. Number one would be go after the big tech companies, the Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple. They've all got their plays, but not really my style. I like to go earlier stage. So you go after the development companies, right? The NVIDIAs, the AMDs, who are building things within these metaverses. Or the higher risk, earlier-ish stage would be to chase the tokens and the currencies that will be used in these metaverses. So I'm trying to get to that answer myself. I'm joined by Janine Yorio, the CEO of Everyrealm today, to help me get there. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Now, three things before we jump in here. Number one, I publish a weekly newsletter where I share my biggest takeaways from conversations just like this and any action steps I may be taking in the market as a consequence. You can subscribe for free. Just hit that pinned comment right beneath this video or go to jmartin.club. Number two, ad revenue from this channel is now donated to an organization super close to my heart called Zero Ceiling. Zero Ceiling's mission is to end youth homelessness, and the way they do this is by giving at-risk urban youth the opportunity to relocate to beautiful wilderness areas and then provide them with career training, supportive housing, and just generally positive influences in their life. And number three, if you prefer to listen to my content as opposed to watch it, you can find me wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search for The J Martin Show. All right, here's Janine Yorio. Enjoy.
This is J Martin.
All right, what's up, guys? Jay Martin here, investor and host of The Jay Martin Show, and I'm joined right now by Janine Yorio, the CEO of Everyrealm. Janine, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm excited to chat with you and pick your brain on a web of directions here. So I'm going to cram as much in as possible. For anybody who's not familiar, though, with Everyrealm or who you are and what you do, can we start with that? Just a quick highlight overview. Who are you, Janine, and how do you spend your time?
Sure. So I spend my time working, almost all of my free time, but Everyrealm is one of the most active investors and developers in the metaverse ecosystem. We've made investments in 25 different metaverse platforms. We own over 3,000 NFTs. We're definitely the most active metaverse real estate investor and developer. We co-manage a gaming guild in conjunction with a traditional esports league. We build our own NFTs and metaverse activations in-house, both with our own intellectual property and in concert with traditional licensing arrangements with bigger brands. So we do lots of different things, and I think of Everyrealm as really a holding company for the metaverse.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a lot to pull on there. Some of my audience are going to be familiar with some of the things you discussed, others not. So most people who watch my show are curious about early stage investment opportunities and therefore the flow of capital, right? Where capital is going, opportunities appear. Now let's start with 25 metaverse platforms. So we're talking about platforms like Sandbox, Decentraland, et cetera. And you've been most active in the Sandbox. Is that correct?
The Sandbox represents the largest part of our portfolio. So in addition to having our own asset production studio, we also have an asset management business. We have 3 funds in that business line, one of which invests in metaverse real estate, one of which invests in NFTs, and one of which is a much more broad, diversified portfolio that invests in companies, infrastructure, and other things in the metaverse ecosystem. So the largest exposure we have today in terms of current value is in the Sandbox.
And let's just put some numbers to this, because I believe you're the largest investor with, it was a $4.3 million investment. You essentially bought a city. Do I have this right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think it's actually better to think of us as a landholder in that particular situation, because the Sandbox also has LP investors in the company. We are not invested in the Sandbox as a company. Conversely, the Sandbox is our investor. They're an LP in our company. So you'll find with the Metaverse and Web3 ecosystem, it is very interconnected. There's a lot of investments that we've invested in their company, they've invested in our company, we invest in their portfolio company is our partner. Because the industry is so nascent, we all know each other and we all understand how big the opportunity is. So we tend to work collaboratively and oftentimes invest side by side or invest in each other's businesses. And that's the situation with the Sandbox and some other players as well.
It's very similar to traditional property development.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, where people realize that the total addressable market is big enough that you don't really have to think about it as being competitive. You can be collaborative and actually share more than you would in other industries where it's winner take all.
Now, can we back up for a minute and talk to me about what makes you confident in this industry and this business model? What macro trends are you seeing in just behavior, sentiment, activity, et cetera?
So there are why I think it's absolutely happening and why I'm staking my entire professional career on it. And then also why I think other smart people are doing so. So let's start with my own internal thesis, which honestly formed around watching my 2 children. So I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I think actually in this instance, it's like having 2 crystal balls, because I can see the future and I watch them interact with technology. And in this case, in Metaverse, the early adopters are children, because the pandemic forced us all to socialize online, children more so than anybody, and they need the company of other children, something we all know to be a fact. There were already multiplayer games where they could have social experiences like Fortnite and Minecraft, and they were already very, very popular before the pandemic. But I think the pandemic accelerated a trend where the game became more than just a game. It became a way for a person to do lots of different things all in one place, from socialization to entertainment, which is the gaming component, to audio chat, and to more passive forms of entertainment, like watching other people play the game. And for that generation, children ages, say, 8 to 15, these metaverse-like games have become their primary mode of interacting with technology. And therefore, their expectations from the internet are very different from ours and anybody who grew up without those multiplayer games in their life. They expect experiences with the internet to be interactive, to be social, to have audio chat, to have live chat, and to be something that you can actually walk into, like a 3D environment as opposed to a 2D website that has a scrolling UX. Therefore, I believe that as they age out of the child-focused metaverses, they will continue to have those same expectations from technology. We'll have adult-focused versions of those types of things, which is exactly what the Sandbox is. The Sandbox is Minecraft for grown-ups. And that expectation from technology is going to completely transform how the internet looks and feels for everybody. The children are there first. They're already living in the metaverse. So anybody who's an adult saying, is this likely to happen? It's already happening. It's just not happening in the adult world yet. So 100% it's going to be what happens next. Now, that's why I think the metaverse is a sure thing. And that's why I think I was so early into the space. I had this conviction watching this strange thing happen to my children where they actually prefer to socialize in this way. They prefer it over in real life activities, which is not a great thing, but it is in fact the case. Then we have a lot of external validation for this thesis, which is you have obviously Mark Zuckerberg, who's betting the ranch literally on Metaverse, changed his company name. You have the big game players that are suddenly starting to announce and double down on Metaverse. You have all the consumer products companies that are trying to figure out Metaverse plays. So it's not just me off on an island having this thesis. You suddenly have what I think we can all agree are really smart people starting to invest heavily on this future, which is still, kind of a long way off. The hard part with Metaverse is you can't really see it yet. You can with these child-focused metaverses, but then kind of projecting into the future and understanding what it will look like when adults are there is something that requires a bit more vision because it's not really happening at scale yet.
Yeah, you're right. And that is the biggest challenge. I mean, for me personally, right? When you said you can't see it yet, like that resonates so well. You know, I've strolled around Decentraland, had a poke around, see what's going on here. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because I see all the indications that you're discussing, which is cash flowing towards development, right? And I follow that money and look for opportunities because usually there's an avalanche of retail money coming down the pipe, whether it's 5 years, 10 years down the road. I'm not quite sure, but okay, I have a couple questions for you based on.
Can I hit on that one? Because
please.
I feel like as somebody who is early in this space, it is my duty to help people gain a better understanding of what the metaverse is. I think there is a lot of lazy journalism out there that's misinforming people about what the metaverse is. It comes from a few different things. One is every time a journalist writes about the metaverse, they pull the same stock photo of somebody wearing a VR headset.
Yeah.
The metaverse is not about VR. And every journalist pulls one of the same 10 stock Getty image photos of that, and that's further leading to misinformation. It is my thesis that the metaverse happens 18 inches from your face and not with your laptop strapped to your face in VR, which I think helps you to understand why it's something you can do more casually, like the same way we interact with our smartphones. You don't hold it here to the detriment of everything else happening in your life. You do it while you're also living your life, and so too will the metaverse be like that. The second is that when civilians go looking for the metaverse, they get stuck at Decentraland, okay? And they think that is the metaverse. It is a metaverse. It happens to be the crypto-based metaverse that is the most advanced, but we're tracking over 300 different metaverse platforms. The thing you have to keep in mind, building a metaverse is building a video game. And if you know anything about video games, it takes years to develop them. So just because the one that's most advanced may be a bit less than you might have been expecting had you watched the movie Ready Player One, does not mean that that is the category. What I will tell you is that there are so many exciting metaverse companies in the works, and that it takes longer to build a metaverse than it does to make a feature film, right? So just kind of try to calibrate what that means in terms of how long you should expect these things to take and launch, and you'll start to understand why. Decentraland is basically a prototype. It shows you what could happen. I think another very good place to look is at Second Life or InView. These are non-crypto based metaverses that do have active user bases that actually are quite functional and have much more of an internal economy than Decentraland already does. All of these things are emblematic of what the metaverse can look like, and not just Decentraland.
That's so funny. When civilians explore the metaverse, they get lost in Decentraland. I'm like, that's exactly what happened to me.
They can't find anything else, because the truth is, even of the 25 metaverse platforms we've invested in, only a handful have launched yet, and most of them have launched in beta. The Sandbox, which is by far the most popular of the metaverse platforms, hasn't launched yet. You cannot go play in the Sandbox yet. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about how early it is. We are, if you want to use historical equivalents, at the days of dial-up, at the days of AOL and Prodigy, and we're not even at Google yet. We're still before the layers have started to build on top of this metaverse idea. It's super early.
I really appreciate that context. Those are great analogies to draw. Your comment about VR, do you think that will change when the hardware gets better, when it's like super low profile, et cetera, lightweights and agile? I
think there are a couple of things to keep in mind with VR. Is this audience generally over the age of 18?
Yes.
Okay, so
yeah, my audience is 25 to 55, generally speaking, right? It is public on the internet, but
if I say something off color, I don't want you to have to bleep me out. But I think people have been waiting for the killer application of VR for a while. And everybody was very excited to see that Oculus was the most popular gift this holiday giving season. My children got one. They fought over it, and then I didn't see it again ever after a couple of days. The thing with wearing VR goggles, they're heavy, they leave your eyes red, and what's worse, think about it this way, and I think this is the easiest way to understand why I don't think it's how it's going to catch on until the technology changes. Porn is usually how new technology gets adopted. It's certainly what led the internet into its golden age. If you're wearing VR goggles, you'll never know when your mom walks into the room. And therefore, by definition, that use case can't work. And that's kind of, you can think about the practical applications. In order to wear VR goggles, you have to check out of life, right? Yeah. You basically become completely useless. So I do think that AR And this idea of having something that's transparent, so you'll put it over your eyes, but still be able to see what's happening around you, is a more likely outcome as opposed to something that's truly opaque and means checking out of life. I think humans have come to expect a more casual interaction with technology, right? How many times are you talking to a friend and also playing with your phone, or watching TV and also playing on your phone? I think the metaverse is just another form of procrastination. And you need to be able to do that, while your boss is watching you work, while your mom is having a serious conversation with you, and not necessarily, all of a sudden check out of life and the whole world knows you're completely indisposed. The way that VR technology is built today doesn't lend itself to the discretion we all need in order to sneak our primary forms of procrastination into our daily lives.
Yes. Okay. That's really valuable because it's easy to maybe read this lazy journalism or look at some visuals, maybe hop into Decentraland and assume that what this will be is all encompassing. It's where, I will go, like Snow Crash style. I don't know if you've read that book, but and the way you put it, you're like, no, it's the same. Like I don't live on Instagram, but I may check it when I want to procrastinate and delay, what I need to do today. So in terms of hardware, that's the indicator. Until it works for porn, we can't really expect widespread adoption. I agree with you. I mean, that's been the case numerous times over.
Mm-hmm. I think, look, humans are ingenious, and I'm sure we're going to figure out a better way to have something more immersive. The movie Ready Player One painted a very compelling picture of one version of how the metaverse is going to end up being. It's like this dystopian, all engrossing, to the detriment of your real life version of what the metaverse is. My thesis about what the metaverse is a little less destructive. The metaverse is what happens when the entire internet starts behaving like a video game, meaning that all of the experiences, whether you're shopping or looking to book travel, become things that you can walk into and see your friends while you're doing it. So if you and I are both shopping on Amazon at the same time, I don't know that you're there and you don't know that I'm there. A Web3 metaverse Amazon experience is we walk into a store and I get a notification, oh, Jay's here. And Jay's like, oh, Janine's here. And we can say, hey, do you like these shoes? Are these cool? And I show them to you and you show them to me and we have a conversation and we buy them and we leave. So it's not that we're, necessarily going to blow each other up, although we can do that too. But it's about the idea that you can do a lot of the same things you can do in the current version of the internet, the Web 2 scroll, but do it in a way where you actually step inside and see your friends there, have an audio or even a video chat conversation with them while you're there. Right.
Okay. You also kind of made me think about something else. When I strolled around Decentraland, as a civilian does, you nailed it. I expected more debauchery. I was like, if this is a world that you could create anything, it's very normal. It feels like I'm walking around an empty Las Vegas, right? That's what it felt to me.
Yeah. And again, I think the developers of Decentraland are truly genius and they've done something really amazing. I think what we're going to see next is going to be even more exciting. You've hit on an important point, which is the metaverse has to be exciting for people to want to spend time in it. And it has to give you experiences that you can't find elsewhere. If you can find it playing a video game or in real life, and it's better when you do it there, you're not going to choose to do it in the metaverse. So the metaverse, and another example I like to think of is like Westworld. I don't know if you watched that show, but it gave you a lot of things if you could have actually done it. Time travel, the ability to kill people and have them, come back to life, and for you to die and come back to life. And that is what being inside a video game-like environment can provide. It can do things that we cannot do when we're awake and we can only do in our dreams. And when the developers of the metaverse and more of them start to understand, it's not about creating digital twins. I think that's another thing the media has done a disservice. Like you got to, football stadiums, like we're going to build the football stadium in the metaverse. Okay, great. But why would I go there? I want to go to the real one because it's exciting and you can eat the food and watch the play and hear the noise. The metaverse has to give us, a football stadium that levitates and where I can hire a hitman to kill the player when he doesn't, make the touchdown, right? It has to give us things we can't do in the real world. Otherwise, we're not going to go there.
Yeah,
we're competing with too many other forms of procrastination for it to be truly addictive.
Yes, you have to be the star of your own choose your own adventure action.
Exactly.
Video, right?
And choose your own adventure with no rules. No real world.
No rules, no consequences.
No
physics,
holidays, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
No physics. Okay. So, oh man. Okay. So therefore, and you've invested in, did you say 300 different metaverse platforms?
No, we're tracking 300. We've invested in 25. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so I could expect that the customization and uniqueness, right, of each metaverse is infinitely scalable to the point where I can really, if we're walking down 5-10 years down the road, whatever crazy experience or style of world I'm looking for, there might be a metaverse that suits that, right? And you could sort of scroll through a menu of, adventure sports, yinned out meditation experiences, whatever, right?
Just think about it like the internet. If you replace the word metaverse with internet, it becomes easier to wrap your arms around what it is. The metaverse is just an interconnected network of websites that behave like social video games. So there will be big platforms that have the bulk of the traffic, the way that Google and Expedia capture a lot of footfall. But there will also be other much more niche metaverses, say one focused on Dungeons and Dragons, where you have this really strong online community. It doesn't appeal to everybody, but it's there and it's built for their entertainment. The same way that, your hair salon probably has a website today. It's important to you once a month. Well, maybe not you, but other people, once a month when they need to make a hair appointment, but the rest of the time, it's not a website that drives a lot of traffic. So there will also be metaverses, some of which are major portals and entry points for millions of users every day. And some of them are going to be really niche, selling things, offering experiences that speak to a small subset of the population. Okay. Now, how would I therefore, so right now I'm looking for opportunities to invest in the development of the metaverse. And I'm, I'd say at super early stages, Janine, like I haven't found anything. I've got really a lot of conviction in the thesis. I'm just exploring and trying to understand what the heck is going on. And what I've determined so far is maybe there's a couple avenues. You could go after the big tech players and developers like Meta, Apple, Google, Amazon will all have their horse in the race. It's not really my style. So I can look at, the picks and shovels approach, maybe companies like yours, or would you, like NVIDIA or AMD or companies that are building and developing. And then maybe, the higher risk would be to actually buy land, develop it. I'm not going to do that. Maybe buy the currencies and hold them. That's more of my style, probably. What are the avenues that investors should look at right now, do you think? You kind of hit on all the possibilities. It is a very difficult sector to play as a trade for all of the reasons you pointed out. You can either make an investment in what I would consider to be a mature, large publicly traded company like Meta. You can try to source your own early stage venture capital opportunities either through your personal network or through crowdfunding platforms or your own ability to wrangle your way into syndicates. But these companies tend to be so hotly contested by venture that it's very difficult to get allocations. Yeah. There are, I think playing the tokens is a really interesting strategy. It's something that we certainly do. And I think it's a good way you can scale in. You can buy one token or $1 million worth if you want to and kind of average in over time. But there aren't really great, very directed ways to invest in Metaverse today. We're working on that. We do have our own funds, but they are limited to accredited investors and for the most part cater to hedge funds, family offices, and traditional LP capital.
Got it. Okay. And do you expect, I guess I've looked at, maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum as just a really general proxy to the development and progression of the metaverse. Do you think that's an accurate relationship that I would?
When you mean like with the adoption of Bitcoin and how the trajectory it took as a proxy for how you see metaverse catching on?
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I don't know that they're really that correlated. I think Bitcoin is, I've never actually, that's a really good question. And I wish I had a better answer for you. I think it's possible. Right. I think it's a bit more like video gaming in that I think it will go mainstream faster because it's easier to understand. It's going to be easier to see. I think the problem with Bitcoin is that the people that understood it really understood it and everybody else just like threw their hands up and they couldn't wrap their head around it. And it wasn't really until NFTs put a picture on blockchain and you could see it moving around between people's wallets and people started to understand, okay, this is what blockchain can actually do. And now I understand why Bitcoin's important because it can move around really easily. I think this is going to be much easier for people to understand once they see it. Once a couple of these really sophisticated photoreal metaverse platforms launch, it's going to go mainstream much, much faster because it's very visual. It lends itself to pictures and exploration that anybody with a computer can do. Right. You don't have to be a blockchain engineer mining Bitcoin in your dorm room to understand video games.
Yes, totally. Okay. Yeah. And I guess if you're chasing the currencies or the tokens as a proxy, you could get a bit a bit more granular and go after like sand coin or something, I just see it as a bit more volatile. Obviously, it can be more correlated, right? To the development of the sandbox.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the metaverse tokens is, yes, of course, they're correlated, but they're not as correlated as you would think. And if you actually graph them side by side with Bitcoin and Ethereum, they track, but it's not perfectly correlated.
Yes. Okay. Now you just mentioned photo real. You're like, these are going to be photo real. And what I would say, another reason that I left Decentraland kind of just not super enthusiastic was because the fidelity wasn't that impressive, and it's like very pixelated and kind of like like Minecraft, the video game. So I guess it's on par. And a buddy of mine was like, well, look, you got to think about access, right? They want the whole world to be their market. The higher the fidelity, right, the better the hardware needs to be to utilize that experience. And if you're chasing down the whole world as your user base, you want to make this, I guess, as simple as possible to process on whatever hardware, laptop, computer the user is using.
Yeah, and you don't want to build something that can only be used on a very expensive gaming rig. So I do think there's a hardware issue as well. But I also think, again, I always bank on human ingenuity to the rescue. So as much capital as flooding into this sector, I'm positive that somebody's going to come up with an ingenious solution to delivering an experience that's not necessarily photoreal, but more photoreal, right? More photoreal than Decentraland. I think that's an important factor for an adult audience. In fact, one of the reasons why we like Second Life, and we did an activation last week, was a fashion show designed to coincide with New York Fashion Week. If you want to show a dress that's beautiful and show a level of detail that shows the designer's real artistry, you can't do it in something voxelated like Minecraft. It just ends up looking like Legos.
Yes.
So we actually did the fashion show in the Second Life because the Second Life has a video quality that is much more realistic. And we're able to show the fabric moving and avatars that look like models with proportions that look like models. So there are examples of metaverses that are a bit more photoreal. They're just not built on the blockchain, and the ones that are slated to have that level of quality haven't launched yet. That have crypto haven't launched yet.
Yeah. Well, it's a mistake that we often make, right? When looking at a new technology, we see it as it is today, and then maybe think about it as it is today, as opposed to what it will become. You know what
it can be, what the possibilities can be once the newer entrants come to market.
Yeah, that's the oldest story in the book when it comes to watching tech adoption and progression. Okay, I know we're bumping up against the clock here. So last question for you, Janine. What are you most excited about at Everyrealm right now? What's in your future that you're just super jacked about?
I mean, the number of opportunities that we're seeing. People who are very visionary are so excited about the metaverse, and they have such amazing ideas when it comes to building content. And given the situation we're in, which is having gotten in a bit earlier and having delivered on some really high quality projects that have really broken records and been very viral in their internet footprint, we're working with a lot of those content creators, and I think it's amazing. I think 2022 is going to be the year of development, and 2023 is going to be the year that all of these projects start coming to market, and it's going to be mind-blowing. Should probably write off all in real life experiences in 2023 because we're all going to be at home sitting in the metaverse, doing all these cool, warped, interesting things without leaving our house.
Okay, so one last question. I know I said that was my last. I lied to you.
That's okay.
I would rather sit in a room and interview you right now. That's how I would rather do these conversations.
Right.
Would I be smarter, Janine, to pursue a physical studio in a town like Austin or Miami where guests would be inclined to travel to? Or should I hunt down some kind of pursue? When can I do this in the metaverse is my question.
The biggest issue is audio quality. Right now, you really want to have better audio quality than the metaverse allows. And in fact, as a metaverse company, we're also waiting for the day when it makes sense for us to conduct our meetings in the metaverse. We use Zoom. And what I will tell you is I think the metaverse is still being pieced together. It's still a patchwork quilt. The metaverse is Zoom. It's happening on Discord. It's happening in places where, because the metaverse one-stop technology solution doesn't yet exist, people are having to find their own ways to connect communities in a way that is interactive and social, like these ultimate metaverse platforms will be. And for now, video chat is a better forum, a better mode than doing it in the metaverse.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see that too.
If you were to make me travel to Austin, I probably wouldn't have done this interview. Not that you're not great, but there is certainly an allure to me not having to leave New York City in order to do this.
Yeah, 100%. No, I completely agree. It's Yeah, two sides to that one. Okay, look, Janine, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to catch up again sometime.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for watching this interview. Now, 3 things before I let you go. Number 1, I publish a weekly newsletter and I love writing it. I share my biggest takeaways and action items from the conversations that I have on this channel. In addition, my thoughts on current events, economic events, political events, and you can subscribe for free. Just hit the pinned comment right beneath this video, or just go to jmartin.club and you can subscribe on the website. I'd love to have you join the team. Number 2, ad revenue from this channel is donated to an organization that is super close to my heart called Zero Ceiling. Now, Zero Ceiling's mission is to end youth homelessness, and the way they do this is by giving at-risk urban youth the opportunity to relocate to beautiful wilderness areas and then provide them with supportive housing, career training, and just generally positive influences on their life. I love what they do. Check them out if you're interested. And number 3, if you prefer to listen to my content as opposed to watch it, you can find me wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search for The J Martin Show. All right, thanks again.